Hello and welcome to this lecture. Here we are going to understand what are identifiers and what are keywords, how they are different. Also, we will try to understand how we can comment our code and generate documentation for our code as well. So I have taken the liberty to actually create one class under this org.tvl package. I'll quickly open this up. So the name of the class is trial class. So whenever you are coming up with a name of yours from your thought process, right, and using it in the code, that is termed as an identifier. So let's say the name of this class, the name of any method within the class, the name of the variables that we use within the methods or within the class. So these are something that we actually think on our own and then use it in the code. These are basically identifiers. Also, Java uses few keywords, that is basically a set of identifiers which is recognized by Java. Java does not recognize the name of your method. Java will understand a few identifiers known as keywords such as public, then class, then static, then return. There are around 50 keywords in Java, and we cannot use those names of those 50 keywords in the name of our variables. Like, we should not have variables with the same name as those keywords. That is something to keep in mind. Now, moving on, how do we name or structure our identifiers? First of all, let's say I want to declare a new variable. So let's say I want to create a string and I want to name the string as 123 equals to example. This is not going to work because the name that I have used here is totally composed of numbers and it also begins with a numeric digit which is not permitted. So we cannot start the name of an identifier with a number. Also, if we start the name with say ampersand RT56, that is also not going to work because we cannot start the name of identifier with a special character. The only two special characters which are allowed in identifiers to actually start them with are dollar, right, and underscore. So if you want to start our identifier names with the special characters, we can only use a dollar and an underscore. Also, if we want to use numbers, then we are free to use numbers not as the first character of our identifier, but following characters. So let's say I start the variable name as var, then I can use a 1. That is permitted. Same goes here. If I start with var, I can put a 2 here. But the important thing to note here is you cannot start a particular identifier name with a number. There are no restrictions on the length of the variables that you are using or the length of the identifier names that you will be using in your code. So with that being said, we will move on to understanding how you can comment our code. Now, what is commenting your code? So whenever you're looking at your code, if you have small snippets of texts or few phrases which helps you understand what particular lines of codes are doing, it will be super helpful for the person who is trying to understand your code and also trying to make changes to it. So the readability aspect and the maintainability aspect of your code is increased manifold. There are two types of comments that we can write. One is a single line comment. How do we write a single line comment? It starts with 2 front slashes. Once you put 2 front slashes, you are free to type anything. Next, We can have a multi-line comment as well. So you can write the same comment in multi-line. So this is a single line comment. Now let's see how we can write a multi-line. Multi-line starts with slash asterisk and ends with asterisk slash, and you are free to write anything in between them across multiple lines. So this is a sample multi-line comment. So this is how you are using a multi-line comment. Next, what we are going to discuss is what is a documentation comment. So basically, you have your code and you want to generate the documentation for the same. So I have before you a sample documentation opened for the list interface. Here we can see a detailed information about the things present in the list interface. If you scroll down a bit, you will be able to see the method summary. So all the methods which are present in the list interface, the instance methods, abstract methods, default methods. So we'll be understanding what these methods are, but for now it would suffice to just understand that all the methods that this list interface supports, we are able to see them here. Also, each method, if you click on any one of the methods, let's say you want to understand what this add method is doing, if you click on it, it will take you to a detailed documentation for that method. What are the exceptions that are thrown by the method? What are the parameters the method accepts? And so and so. So that is what generating a documentation does in Java. So let's say you are writing a small class and you want to generate the documentation for this. How do we do that? So it's very simple. So basically we start with the documentation code comments, which is done by front slash and then double asterisk and then press enter, and immediately it will generate the documentation comments. So already we can see there is a particular annotation called the author annotation, which is already added here, and its corresponding value is also present. So let me change this to binary life. I will add one more annotation, maybe version, and I will make it 0.0.1. So this is how I am commenting my class. We can also use HTML if you want. So let me add a paragraph tag here. Piece of text in between, and that is how you can add HTML as well in the documentation. Always remember, the documentation that you are writing here will be applicable to the construct which lies directly below this. So since we are writing it on top of the class, this documentation will be pointing to the trial class. So this particular class has two methods as well. So one is the main method and one is the addition of two numbers. So we can add the documentation for these two methods separately. Let's see how we can do that. Again, same thing, just on top of the method put a front slash and two asterisk. You will be able to see this kind of a document getting generated, and you can see that it automatically adds this parameter annotation and the name of the argument. So the name of the argument here is args. The same thing will be detected by the ID and it will be added here. If you add the documentation for the next method, here we see, since there are two parameters a and b, those two got added, and since there is a explicit return statement here, we are seeing a return annotation also being added. So I'll just put a few lines of comments here and see how we can generate the documentation. For parameter a, we can see this is the first number. Parameter b, we can see this is the second number to be added. and the return value is the summation of these two numbers. Right, so we are done with the documentation part. Now we have to generate the documentation so that it looks like the one documentation that we saw previously. So how do we generate the documentation? So it's very simple. You just have to go to project, then scroll down to generate Java doc. Automatically your current project, that is understand Java syntax, will be selected here, and just click on finish. For this particular exercise we are not going to change any settings for Java doc generation, so we'll just click on finish. So as we can see in the console, it will be generating a few artifacts for the documentation. And also if you notice here in the package explorer, we get a new folder called doc. So if you expand this, there will be one index.html file, which is this one. Open it up in your browser. So I'll open it up with my default browser. We have the documentation generated for our package org.tbl and the trial class. So if you click on this trial class, you will be getting so much of information automatically generated for you. As you can see, the version number that we added 002 has come up here. The name of the author is also present. And what does this class do? This is a class which adds two numbers. These things we added in the class, that is actually coming up over here. If you go to methods, we have two methods, addition of two numbers and the main method. Then if you go to the method details, here actually we will see the method documentation that we added. So we have the main method, and if you remember, we added this line, the params passed from the command line. And also for addition of two numbers, there were two parameters. So this is the first number to be added, we added this line as well. This is the second number to be added, this also was added by us. And in the return statement, we also added this. So just by clicking generate documentation, we get a nice web page to actually show you the documentation of the class that you have written, which is really nice, a very nifty feature. So with this, actually we come to the end of this lecture. See you in the next lecture. Thank you.